is a city that started in the 3rd millennia BC. So when the Romans came here, it was already a very ancient city. The thing about the history of Beit Shean is that the Roman time was the pinnacle of Beit Shean, meaning that during the 1st and 2nd centuries AD, about 50,000 people lived here. That is big. Jerusalem was bigger, Caesarea by the sea was bigger, and third was Beit Shean. Just that we kind of understand how big that was. Modern day Beit Shean, only 10,000 people. So everything, all the ruins that you see around us, folks, that's only 10% of Beit Shean from 1900 years ago. Everything that you see today, multiply that by 10 to get the size of Beit Shean. The archaeology focused on the Roman period because that offers the most impressive things. So don't get the wrong idea that Beit Shean was always Roman. It was a long time before the Romans came and also a few centuries after they left. What eventually destroyed, demolished Beit Shean was the worst earthquake ever in our history in the year 749. So what you see here, this is a classic bathhouse, although this is a lot bigger and fancier than the average one. I stopped here because this is, to me, was the most impressive room in the bathhouse. This is what the Romans called the caldarium. Caldarium was the steam room. So after going through the cold water room and the warm water, they came to here. What we do not see today is the floor that was on top of all these pillars that you see that. And so if you came here 2,000 years ago, you would have seen a floor. You wouldn't see how it's being supported. That there was a space of about half a meter between that floor and the one that was on top of these pillars. And then there was a furnace, for instance, over there. The hot air was delivered in between the two floors, so everything was hot over here. People would sit on benches around with a jug of water in their hands, and every time they poured water on the floor, the steams would rise, and they would have their sauna experience. And then after that, you can look in the pictures over there, how they will then go and lay on their beds and, you know, kind of rest a little bit and then do that again. People could have done this all day long. Okay, the bathhouses in the Greek and the Roman world were big, and it wasn't just entertainment. This is, in a way, like golf today. People sometimes go to play golf because they love the game, and some do that because they're very good at it, but many people do that as, you know, socializing with other people, business meetings, you know. People will play golf together and talk about business and partnership and things like that. That's the same thing over here. You would invite someone for a few hours, go together to the bathhouse. While you're here, you're having fun, but you're also talking business, you're talking about important things, and so a significant part of their lives took place over here in the bathhouse.
This was the street out here where the BMWs and all that drove. The horses and the carriages and everything else was there. This is the sidewalk. It would have been open to the street with the pillars here, but covered. So covered sidewalk. The shops are over here. This is the pedestrian part of the street. Would have been beautiful, covered. And here, obviously, you see these great floors. I think what a couple of things you see here. One, you see the mosaics that, unlike, you know, if this was found in the United States, they wouldn't let us just be walking on 1,800-year-old mosaic floor and we're just going to walk along it. Yet you see, again, this is not a spectacular mosaic floor, but it's spectacular in one sense in that look at the size of it all the way down here and still preserved to this day. And the fact that they took all these little stones and put those together to make this floor and to do the entire sidewalk and all through the city, really. It was just, you know, it kept somebody busy for a couple of days. But then notice it was raised up, and here is put marble. You see some of the original marble and some put here to help us understand what it looked like. In one sense, this gives us a good idea of a tell. We don't understand how in the world could they do that. Well, right here, they said, hey, you know what? We don't like this old linoleum anymore, and we're going to put a new marble floor and do some remodeling. And so they just raised the level of the floor and put in the new one here, and you do that enough times and you end up with a tell like you have over there. So just imagine again in the height of the Greco-Roman period, shopping that took place along here, and all of these pillars, they many of them had fallen over because of the earthquake, and they could tell where they went and put it back together. They would have also been plastered so that you wouldn't have seen the joints there, and it would have just been really a beautiful, sparkling city.
In there, and now you remember also what I told you about 749. All the columns that you see here, they're original, but that's not how we found them. We had to lift them because they were all laying on the side of the road due to that earthquake. And some of these pillars are still laying down here because the archaeologists want us to understand the magnitude of that earthquake. The pillars that you see here, they weigh about 30 tons each. And it has to be a very, very powerful earthquake to cause this to go down. And like I said, they left it on purpose, so we'll appreciate that. Now, a confession. I was here last week with a group, and I don't know why, but I was just mad. So what I did is I hit the pillar right there and it broke in half. So I apologize for that, and I just wanted to know what the true story behind it. So it's a combination of the earthquake and this. First one we saw in Caesarea, this is all original. The one that we saw the first day was mostly remodeled. This is all original, but not only that. What you see here today is only 1/3 of the original size. So there were 2 levels on top of this one. This is the only one that has survived the earthquake that I told you about. It could sit between 7,000 to 8,000 people originally. And again, keep in mind that when the archaeologists first came here, all of this was buried. Actually, when the Crusaders came here in the 11th century and built this small ranch on top of the tell over there, they did not see all this. So actually, above us was the farmland of the Crusades. They were farming the land that protected all of this. And I said protected because had they known about it, they would have taken all this material to build their homes. Why go to the quarry and scratch? You can come here and just break the pieces that already exist and take them home and you're good. In any event, what I wanted to talk about here is King Saul. King Saul was killed in battle on Mount Gilboa, a couple of kilometers over there to the west. And from day one, I talked about the grace of God. I told you already on Mount Carmel about Elijah, about Moses, about Samson, that was a great Nazarite and prophet and whatnot, but failed to do the right thing. And in the end of his life, God grace gets into the picture, restores his power, and he destroys the Philistine temple and killed more people when he died than when he was alive. So God's grace is almost in every chapter in the Bible, you can see that. And also when it comes to King Saul, from day one, King Saul did not do the right things. He's after David. He wants to kill his own son, Jonathan. He doesn't go to the Elah Valley to fight Goliath, even though he was supposed to be the one to do that, and we'll talk a lot more about it when we get there. So he is just failing to do the right thing. But at the same time, let's not forget that the big difference between Saul and David is that when Saul is being chosen by Samuel, what we know is that he was looking for his lost donkeys. When David comes to the Elah Valley and he's a kid, he says, I am a shepherd. I protected my sheep from the lion and the bear. He's already planting the seeds to show us right now, I'm a little guy, but a day will come and I will be the shepherd of this nation, versus King Saul, who could not even find his donkeys. How in the world is he going to be the leader of Israel? So the start point was not equal, okay? And when Saul is here at Beit Shean, he wakes up in the morning one day, he looks to the west, and he sees the gigantic Philistine army camping over there. And he is very afraid of what he is seeing. He knows he cannot defeat this army. What he does next, he goes to the witch and says to her, call Samuel for me. And Samuel comes and he's already upset and saying to him, why are you disturbing me and all that? And listen to what Saul says to him. I do this because God has left me. As a Jew, folks, this is the worst thing that one can say. You can say, my kids don't talk to me. You can say, my wife left me. But if you say, God has left me, that means I'm empty. I'm zero. I'm nothing. If God is me anymore, there's no point for me to keep on living. I'll give you an example. When Eli, the priest, was an old man and was sitting on his couch, when the messenger came from the battlefield, what did he tell him? He said to him, Israel was defeated, and he was able to absorb that. Your 2 sons were killed, and he was able to absorb that. And the ark is gone. He fell backwards, broke his neck, and died. Because when the presence of God leaves you, it's worse than hearing that your sons got killed. And so this is what Saul is telling Samuel, God has left me. Now you would think that at this point, Samuel will have a bit of mercy for him, but no, it's the opposite. You will go to battle tomorrow, you will die, your sons will die, and Israel will be defeated. And if I pause here for just a second and tell you that most commanders, generals, chief of staffs of armies, if this was the news that they heard by God or by the messenger of God, not just by an advisor, okay, that you will die, your army will be defeated, your boys will die, most everyone would have said, plan B, I'm not going to fight tomorrow. Why would I? If these are the outcomes of the battle, I'm not going to battle tomorrow. But that's exactly when I say God's grace got into the picture. Because Saul was going to die. That was destined. And Saul, after hearing that, he had peace with himself. Because at that point, he got everything together. What he failed understanding almost his entire life, he now got it right. He understood what is right and what is wrong. It is the same guy that refused to go and fight Goliath, okay, even though God would have been with him, but he didn't trust God that much. He didn't do it. Now he is going to a battle which is a lot worse than Goliath. Because before Goliath, nobody told him you're going to die. He still had a chance. And here, he knows for sure he's going to die, and yet he goes to battle. That's a heroic act. How many people would do that? So Saul decided, if I did not live as a king, I'm going to die as a king. And he goes to battle. And he's badly injured. And he says to his servant, kill me so I'm not killed by the uncircumcised Philistines. And his servant says, no, I can't do that. So he falls on his sword and dies. And his sons are being killed by the Philistines, and Israel is defeated as the prophecy of Samuel, and the war is over. But what we take from this, that King Saul did not live as a hero, but he died as a hero. And without God's grace, he would have died like a dog over here. Because I tell you what could have been the other scenario. He would have been looking to the west, seeing the Philistine army, starts to flee from them, They're going after him. They capture him. They take his eyes away. Whatever they abuse, his girls or whatever, a wife, kill his sons in front of him, hung him on a tree. I mean, you can imagine how much worse that could have been. Okay? So at least he died with honor and dignity here. And that is something that we need to remember when we think of King Saul, because it's usually only negative things, but we need to understand also the last 24 hours of his life where he finally acted as a king and what he was expected to do by his people. What we know is that the people of Jabesh Gilead came to here, took the body of his sons and himself, Saul, and they went across the Jordan River back and buried them and honored them at Jabesh. And this is also interesting because the question is, why did the people of Jabesh Gilead have to send hundreds of their heroes crossing the Jordan River, risking their lives to do this? Aren't there enough Jewish people here to do that? And the answer is very interesting. First of all, the Jews that were here were terrified because of the Philistines, so they didn't do anything. The people of Jabesh Gilead, they felt that they owed Saul that favor, so to speak. And because when Saul was born, he was a Benjamite, okay? And the Benjamites and the people of Jabesh Gilead were blood related. I'm not going to go through the whole story now. It's a long story, but they were blood related. Just in a nutshell, when the tribes of Israel declared war on Benjamin because of the horrific thing that they did to that lady, that they cut her in pieces and killed her and abused her and all that. In the end of that war, nobody wanted to marry them, the people of Benjamin. But the people of Jabesh that were not part of that war, they sent several hundred of their virgin girls to marry the men of Benjamin, and then the tribe thrived again. And so when King Saul is the king of Israel, and the people of Jabesh are under the attack of Nahash the Ammonite, he goes there and helps them because they are his brothers. And when he dies, they don't forget that. He is our brother, and he is not going to be hung like a dog on the walls of Beit Shean. We'll send our heroes and our soldiers to go get him, and that means a whole out war with the Philistines, so be. כל עוד בלבב פנימה נפש יהודי הומיה ולפתי מזרח קדימה עין לציון צופיה עוד לא אבדה תקוותנו התקווה בת שנות 2000 תליותם חופשי בארצנו ארץ ציון ירושלים ליותם חופשי בארצנו ארץ ציון ירושלים